Welcome back, guys, to the Zoinked podcast. I'm your host, Walker Weiss, joined alongside by co-hosts Sam Howie and Ethan Varnicle. Today, we are going to be talking about fantasy football. So let's get into the questions here. So the first question is, who will be the most valuable fantasy player at the end of this year? One of you guys can go first.
Ethan,
right.
You start.
Yep. All right. So I got Stefan Diggs, actually. He's averaging 35.5 points per game, 11.5 targets, 10 catches a game, and he has 4 touchdowns through 2 games. Plus, he has Josh Allen throwing in the ball.
Yeah.
And he's the clear-cut wide receiver 1 on that team. I don't see him slowing down anytime this season unless Allen gets hurt.
Dynamic duo right there.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah. So for this question, I actually picked Cooper Kupp because, in my opinion, I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best, receiver in the NFL right now. He's already surpassed 100 yards twice. He's also has 3 touchdowns as well. Obviously, he's Stafford's number 1 target, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon because there really aren't a whole lot of receivers on that team that are worth worrying about like that as far as fantasy football is concerned. So, yeah, I would expect Stafford to keep throwing the ball to Kupp and expect him to also be in the race for MVP again.
That's crazy. Both you guys picked wide receiver as well. So did I.
Nice.
I was debating between those two to pick from, but I also picked Stefon Diggs just because the Bills have the number 1 offense in the league. They have Josh Allen, who I think's going to win the MVP, and I just feel like they're going to score a shitload of touchdowns this year. And I just feel like they're going to go crazy, honestly. Like, Stefon Diggs is going to have a career year and go the fuck off pretty much. He had 20 receptions on 23 targets so far, like through this year, 270 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like,
It's his revenge year.
He's balling.
Yeah.
So question number 2, who has surprised you so far?
I'll start. For me, I picked Jalen Hurts. And I was really debating between him and Saquon Barkley, but I think I chose Hurts overall because he's not somebody you would have taken in the draft last year. Let's be honest. And I didn't even think to take him in this year's draft.
Yeah,
that's my fault because I didn't consider the weapons he had when I was drafting. But never mind that. Anyway.
I'm glad I got him.
Yeah, you have him. Fuck you for that. No, I'm playing. But yeah, like I said, he's really impressed me a lot this year, the last 2 weeks. As an Eagles fan myself, I love to see it. And I know he struggled to get Devontae Smith involved last week against the Lions, but he made up for that last night against the Vikings. Smith, he saw the ball 7 times. He recorded 80 yards. And it really wasn't just Smith. He got all of his receivers involved. That includes A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins. They all stepped up tremendously last night. He also did a great job at placing the ball where he needed to place it so his receivers could make some plays. And we saw that a lot last year, something he struggled with. Overall, he finished with 26 for 31 in the air. He put up 333 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 53-yard dot to Quez Watkins, which was amazing to watch. That was beautiful. And he also added 57 yards on the ground. And you both saw it. The Vikings were all sorts of lost last night. You know, they couldn't get it done on offense or defense, and it really showed that the Eagles were just a dominant team. And I believe if they can keep it up and keep playing like that for the rest of the year, they could be a team to watch out for.
All right, so for a player that surprised me the most, well, actually surprised you guys, I got Carson Wentz. He's averaging 38 points per game, 3.5 touchdowns per game. He has a great young wide receiver core in Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel. And also he has J.D. McKissick and Why am I forgetting his name?
Brian Robinson.
No, Antonio Gibson.
Oh,
Gibson.
Yeah, and I don't know. A lot of people doubted him, but I mean, Curtis Samuel is doing really well, and I thought that he was not going to do well, but here we are. Wentz is proving people wrong with he's making them wide receivers look good, and I'm happy for him. I really am.
I can add on to that real quick. I think a change in scenery for Wentz really helped him out too.
Oh, I definitely agree with
that. Yeah. He didn't seem to fit in too well with the Eagles. He fit in a little better with Indianapolis, but I think ultimately he's got a much better receiving core this year with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. I think the Commanders could be another team to possibly look out for. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but you never know.
Yeah, I think with Wentz, honestly, with him, I feel like his issue was like a confidence problem. And I feel like in Washington, he's really feeling like this is his home here. And he's just going in. Like he's been playing great. Their 2-point conversion thing that they went on where he threw that interception, I don't know what the hell that play call was, but
Yeah,
that was stupid that they did that.
he does have 3 picks on the year, but I mean, yeah, it's still early, so.
Yeah. So my player that I picked surprised me so far. I'm picking Joe Flacco. So Joe Flacco is ranked 21st overall in PPR league scoring, and he threw for in week 1, even though he only had a touchdown, he threw for 309 yards. And then week 2, 307 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, holy shit, that's an old ass man, and he's getting the job done on the Jets. Like, with all these young ass guys around him. He hooked up with Garrett Wilson a bunch last week, and that really helped them come back and beat Cleveland. So moving on to question number 3, what NFL team is loaded with the most fantasy gems?
I'll start with this one. So I got the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, 30 points per game. He had 42 points in week 2. They have Jalen Waddle. He's averaging 28 points per game. And Tua is averaging 37 points per game. And Waddle and Hill both had over 40 fantasy points in PPR leagues in week 2, and Tua had 55. Like, that's just insane for Tua. I never thought I'd see the day.
Mm-hmm. He really surprised me personally. I'll talk about it in a little bit as well. But yeah, Tua definitely surprised this week for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So up until about maybe 30, 45 seconds ago, I didn't really think there was another answer to this question. But I went with the Buffalo Bills. And you got Josh Allen, who's arguably the best quarterback in the league right now. You got guys like Dawson Knox, Gabriel Davis. They're also players. They're good players to have. And then Stefan Diggs. Listen, dude has 270 yards so far and 4 touchdowns in just 2 weeks. That's insane. This Allen Diggs tandem is proving why they're probably one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the league. Excuse me. And then their defense, man, they have a top 3 defense as well. I know I said last week that the Chiefs were the favorites to win the Super Bowl, but the Bills are really starting to convince me. They're just an elite team right now. There really is no stopping this team, and I think the future is very bright for them.
Yeah, Davis went off in week 1 for them, but he wasn't able to do anything really in week 2. That's because Stefan Diggs just ate up all the targets and catches and everything.
Wouldn't write him out just yet.
What's up?
I was just saying I wouldn't write him out just yet.
Yeah. So I also picked the Miami Dolphins like Ethan because Tua, like he's just been balling out, and I think he's going to have like a really great year this year. He has the top 2 like fastest duo of like receivers in the league that are just going to eat up a lot of catches and get a lot of yards that just going to make him look better just by them with their athletic ability. And I feel like the Dolphins, like collectively, like that trio right there, like they're all ranked in the top like 25 scorers or something right now in PPR leagues. So I got them. I think they are loaded with the most fantasy gems collectively. The best three dudes, and that whole like top 30 are Dolphins players. So, and now we are going to move on to question 4: who has disappointed you and your team? Hey Sam, how about Cam Akers?
Yeah, let's not talk about Cam Akers. Listen, he's still a good depth guy. Hey, and I made a trade too. See that tomorrow.
Yeah, I seen your trade.
Yeah.
Tell me about your trade.
Right. So just to go off topic real quick. Well, not really. But I made a trade yesterday. I acquired Terry McLaurin and Damian Harris. I got rid of Cordero Patterson, and I got rid of DeAndre Hopkins as well. Listen, I'm 0-2. I'm 0-2. I can't wait for Hopkins for another 4 weeks. I need to get guys that are going to put me in win now territory. So I wanted to hold on to Hopkins, but I feel like I saw an opportunity. I need to take it. But going back to the original question, who's the most disappointing player for my team personally? I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow on this one. I'll be honest. I hated the team I drafted this year. I hated it. I drafted very poorly. I made a lot of mistakes. And I just didn't think I got a competitive team. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I didn't see this team finishing last when I first drafted them. But having said that, one of the picks that I made, which I had the utmost confidence in when I drafted him, was Joe Burrow. He was my backup QB last year, and he was just a fantasy stud. And I often found myself leaving a lot of points on the bench, mainly because I was starting Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not going to bench Aaron Rodgers. And when you got guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins to throw the ball to, yeah, that's a pretty solid fantasy option. This year, it's just been a rough start for the Bengals. They went and upgraded their offensive line. They made lots of moves. They've obviously struggled with their offensive line for a few years now. That's always been their kryptonite. And they're still struggling to protect Burrow. He's not going to have a lot of chances to make the plays. He's always worried about taking those sacks.
Yeah, I think their offensive line's their biggest problem right now, honestly.
And it's showing. It showed against Dallas, and it showed against Pittsburgh the week before that. The season's still young, though. There's still time to make changes, but right now I'm a little concerned about Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals are having a rather lengthy Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah, they are.
I would say so. Hopefully they get that taken care of, but right now it doesn't look too good.
Yeah.
All right, so I have Dalvin Cook. He's ranked. He was first round pick in every draft. He's ranked number 28 right now, averaging 10.7 fantasy points per game. He doesn't have any touchdowns. He's not really in the passing game. And the Vikings offense just looked horrible Monday night, like bad. Kirk, I don't know what Kirk Cousins was seeing, but
nothing.
Ghosts.
I mean,
Darius Slay, that's what he was seeing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Big play Slay.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook had 13.8 fantasy points the first week, and then he had 7.6 the second week. And he should be averaging around 15 first round draft running back. I mean, that's just disappointing. And my team is also 0-2. It was really between him or Tom Brady, because Tom Brady is just not getting it done.
Yeah, so I have the players I picked on my teams that are most disappointing so far. Well, in my one fantasy league, my 8-man league, my team's like absolutely stacked. So like no one's disappointing on that team except for maybe like Ezekiel Elliott, but he's on the bench, so I don't really care. And then our league for the 12-man league, I'd say so far for me, Darnell Mooney and Ramondre Stevenson. Like Darnell Mooney laid up like a goose egg and then like a 1 point something, I think, like a 1.4 or some shit like that. And Ramondre Stevenson, like, I don't know, they were making it seem like he was going to be such a big deal in like the Patriots like running game, and he hasn't impressed me really at all. I mean, I haven't started him at all, but I was hoping to see him at least get in the double digits. And Darnell Mooney's been easily the biggest disappointment because he's done absolutely nothing on the Bears so far. Literally nothing. They've just been giving the ball to Montgomery and throwing it to literally anyone but Mooney. But also, Justin Fields doesn't really have a lot of passing yards so far. So that's another thing. And the Bears also suck. So okay, so let's go to question 5. Who are your top waiver wire pickups for week 3?
All right, so I have Tyler Higby. If you're short on tight ends, Tyler Higby is a good pickup. They're facing the Cardinals, and they are ranked number 28 versus the pass. They're averaging 406 passing yards per game, and they're playing the Rams, and the Rams still have a very good offense. He's averaging 11.5 fantasy points per game, which is way more than most tight ends. He's ranked number 7. He's averaging 10 targets a game, and he has 12 catches on 20 targets, and he has 110 yards. So I think if you're really short on tight end, he would be a good pickup for this week. Matt Stafford's starting to get him involved, and not just Cooper Kupp. So I can see him doing pretty well this week.
Almost forgot about Higby myself. But oh wait, are you still going, Ethan? My bad.
I think Higby,
no, you're good, man.
I think Higby's taken in our league, but
in my one league, he's still available, so I had to mention him.
Gotcha.
All right, I guess I'll go next then. So I picked a few players. First, want to talk about Tua. And I say Tua because he's probably not on a lot of rosters in different leagues around the country, but I know he's on one of our teams. But yeah, I've been critical about Tua all off season long. You know, and just like Jalen Hurts, he's another quarterback that has a lot to prove and has the offense now to do so. And Sunday, he changed my mind entirely. He racked up 6 touchdowns, 469 yards against the Ravens. Didn't dominate as much the first week, but he still surpassed 250 yards. Take that with the fact that he has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. He's a must-add to your team if you're light at quarterback.
Yeah.
Second player I want to talk about, Jacoby Myers. He's someone I originally drafted earlier, but I ended up dropping him. He might be an under-the-radar type of pickup, but he's been targeted a lot more than his fellow teammates, Devontae Parker and Nelson Aguilar. And keep in mind, Parker has really struggled these first 2 weeks. So
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, he could be a sleeper pick.
Because I had Devontae Parker on my team. I just dropped him.
For real?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And also, Tua is rostered in 64% of leagues, so he's probably on the waiver wire this week.
Oh, yeah. Has to be.
For our league, actually last week, I was trying to help Russell out with picks, so I told him to pick up Tua, actually, but I had him start Stafford, which was a mistake, obviously, because Tua went off. But yeah, I told him to pick him up because I was trying to help him out a little bit with some tips and stuff. But anyways, so I also have Jacoby Myers like you do, Sam. Jacoby Myers is rostered in fewer than 50% of fantasy leagues and is currently ranked 10th among NFL receivers in targets on 35.8% of his routes. So, and last week he was targeted 13 times and caught 9 passes. I think that he is going to be the top offensive weapon for the Patriots, and I think he is going to eat up most of the yards and be targeted more than any receiver on their team the rest of the season. So I think he will be a great pickup. And another player would be Daryl Williams, who's on the Cardinals. James Conner is out. You could pick up Daryl Williams. He had 8 rushes last week for, I think, 59 yards or something like that, and he had a touchdown. So I think that he will be a good option. And yeah, let's go to question number 6. What are some tips you guys would give to fantasy owners that start out 0-2?
This is good advice from me and Ethan, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But no, I would say don't panic. I wouldn't panic. We're 2 weeks into the new year. The worst thing you can do is panic and make a dumbass decision. Some players do take a while to find their stride. So I would just stick with the guys you have and don't prematurely get rid of any of your starters. Having said that, if there is somebody in your league that has a player that they're willing to trade, then I don't think it would hurt to inquire. And that's what I did with McLaren and Harris. Going back to that, DeAndre Hopkins suspended. Hey, I'm not going to get him till week 7. I might as well flip that into a solid 2 solid starters, actually. It hurts to lose Patterson, but I'm still getting a solid running back in Harris as well. And be cautious about it. This goes back to not panicking as well. Again, if you have a guy on your bench that's injured or suspended, and that guy asks about that specific player, it's probably not a bad idea to listen, see what he has to offer, because chances are, you're not going to get those guys back for a while. I might have just said that, but anyway, just don't panic. Just don't panic and be cautious with who you trade and who you keep.
I have to agree with you there. The first thing that I was going to say is don't panic yet. Unfortunately, injuries are a thing, and it won't only impact your team, but it'll impact the other people you are playing in your leagues. So you might get lucky and not have many injuries, while other teams will have a lot of injuries, and that could make your team better playing them in the long run. Also, you have to make trades that benefit your team. Like if you have a quarterback that isn't cutting it, but you have a lot of good wide receivers, you trade a wide receiver and something else for a quarterback. So it'll benefit your team in the long run. And also it's good to look at your starters like running backs, wide receivers on the defenses that they're playing. Because if the defenses are averaging a lot of passing yards per game or rushing yards per game, you might want to start them just because they're due to rack up some points. And they'll do some work for your team. And also picking up good defenses every week will definitely help, because if your defense scores over 10 points, that's very good.
It's very good.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm not 0-2 like you guys because I'm not dog shit. Just kidding.
You're not 2-0 either, though.
I'm all right. So I'm 1-1 in our league and I'm 2-0 in my other league. But
fair enough.
So if I start out 0-2, which like I used to when I first started playing fantasy football, like I started out 0-2 a lot because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But first of all, like I mean, it all starts with having a good draft. But from there, you gotta like do your research, look at waiver wire pickups, see like what the experts are gonna like talk about, who they think is going to possibly go off this week, and like read into stuff. Do your research on like statistics and stuff like that. I'd say so. if your team's dealing with injuries, which I used to deal with a lot whenever I first started playing fantasy, you need to try and, well, first you got to be patient and hopefully they recover soon from that injury, but also look for people that need certain players and try and like do a trade package to them that's going to benefit both of you guys, because if both you guys in your mindsets, if you guys both think that it's going to benefit both of you guys are obviously both going to make the trade with each other, which is what I did with you, Sam, whenever I got Allen Robinson and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's now injured, sadly, and I gave you Cam Akers and Elijah Moore. But so look at the waiver wire for players to pick up like constantly throughout the weeks. You can always pick up another defense or whoever's projected to like be up there. You probably want to get them on your team. I mean, I don't always listen to the experts, but a lot of times like I follow what they say, and it's best to do that because it's their job to just constantly go in and do that research and make sure that those players are going to play up to what they say they're going to. But yeah, so, and also with your team, if you don't have depth on it, you want to establish depth. Like you want a lot of running backs and you want a lot of wide receivers, obviously, and you want multiple of them. So if one of those players does get injured, then you can take a player off your bench and put them in for them, and they'll do well, hopefully, if you got the right players on your team.
Yeah.
But so let's move on to question number 7. Name a player that's due for a breakout week in week 3, and why will they be so productive?
I think that Devontae Adams is going to have a great week this week. They faced the 25th ranked defense in the Titans, allowing 404 passing yards per game. He really struggled week 2. Derek Carr just couldn't get the ball to him. He had 2 receptions for 12 yards on 7 targets. You're not going to win games if Devontae Adams is not getting the ball. He's the best player on your offense. You got to get the ball to him. So I think that this week they're going to really get him involved again, and I see them beating the Titans this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go a different route, same position, just a bit different, I guess. But give me Marquise Brown of the Arizona Cardinals. And I say this because I know what he's capable of. I had him on my team last year. Yes, he did struggle with drops at some points during the year. But him being Lamar's number 1 target really gave him an advantage over other receivers on that team. And I think we both know, or all 3 of us know, that the Ravens really lack solid receivers right now. Gave him more opportunities. There were times last year too where having Brown in my lineup really paid off for me as well, as far as points goes. I remember in that game between the Ravens and the Colts, as it went to overtime, he racked up a solid 32 points and won me my matchup that week. And also, I know he's been considered a touchdown-dependent receiver in the past, but last season, he actually went on to break 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. And that boosted his trade stock as well. And Kyler Murray, he's been getting a good chunk of looks to Brown as well during the first 2 weeks. Brown's got 111 yards so far, racked up a touchdown. And then with DeAndre Hopkins suspended for 4 more weeks, as well as A.J. Green and Rondale Moore struggling, I think the sky's the limit for Brown to really break out. And then matchup against the Rams coming up, I think he's definitely a solid flex guy to have on your lineup. If not, maybe, and I say maybe, solid wide receiver number 2.
All right, so Ethan was shitting on my boy, my first pick that I picked 12th, last pick in our draft, Dalvin Cook. He was shitting on him earlier. But no, I think he's going to go off against Detroit, and here's why. The Eagles and Washington ran all over Detroit, and Detroit is giving up the second most points in the NFL currently. So I think that Dalvin Cook's a pass catcher. The Vikings are going to be going into like a bounce back game. I think they're going to be ready to go after that disappointing beatdown by the Eagles. And the
he better
Eagles
give me
defense
30
is locking
points.
them up. I think they're going to come super prepared to that game. And I think Dalvin Cook is going to be one of the main game plans in that game. So I think Dalvin Cook is going to have a breakout week. And I think Detroit's defense isn't that great because obviously they've given up a lot already this year. And their offense is like the only thing that I feel like is actually like super good on their team that like keeps them in games or helps them from beating teams. Like their defense isn't the worst, but like I think it's pretty bad.
Their offense is definitely better, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So moving on to question 8, the last question we got, is Jimmy Garoppolo worth picking up now that Trey Lance is injured?
I'm going to go and I'm going to say yes to this question. I know there's concerns about Trey Lance's future with the Niners, and then him suffering that season-ending injury that only leaves more questions than answers, right? But the Niners are going to be fine. They'll be fine. Because now they go back to the guy who we already know has proven that he can get the job done with the team. And he's also, we're talking about a guy that led them to 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl. And unlike Lance, Jimmy has proven that he's a starting caliber QB and knows the offense a lot better too. So I think it's kind of an upgrade for the 49ers. As far as whether or not you want to start him, I think it's a good idea to keep him on your bench for the time being. So like if your starting QB has a bye or he goes down with an injury, Jimmy G is a solid backup option. And don't forget, he's got an absolute machine in Deebo Samuel. And we already saw the chemistry that those two have with each other already. Whether or not he's somebody to rely on fantasy this year, we'll find out. I think that he has the potential to do good things with the Niners this year. I believe they're in good hands. I think they're going to be fine.
I have to agree with you there. I think if your quarterback isn't really cutting it right now, I say yes, pick him up and start him. They got weapons, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and don't forget about George Kittle. He's coming back soon. And their running backs are just going down. They're getting hurt. And their running game is one of their specialties. So I think if your running backs keep getting hurt, Jimmy Garoppolo knows how to win, and he will get the job done. And I can see him putting up some fantasy points.
Yeah, I'd say he's definitely worth a pickup. I feel like, the 49ers are a top-ranked offensive team. I think that Garoppolo being back where he was last year, he already has the experience, like Sam said. He already has a lot of accolades from the past that he's achieved throughout the NFL so far. I feel like he will be just fine on the 49ers, and they'll get back into the groove. They got, like you said, Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle comes back. He's going to get points for sure. Right now, I'd pick him up for at least a backup quarterback, like if you don't have a good one already, depending on who is on your team. But, I'd say Garoppolo is definitely worth the pickup, honestly.
And you can also use him as trade bait if he puts up a lot of points. Oh, yeah, you could easily trade him.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that is it for episode 2. Thank you for joining in to the Zoinked podcast. I'm Walker Weiss. Thanks, co-host Ethan Varnicle and Sam Howie, for joining us. Until next Tuesday, thank you. Please like and subscribe, and have a good night.